For one long, terrifying second, Margaret Hill forgot how to breathe. She was crouched in the attic of Evelyn Carter's abandoned house, one hand gripping the edge of a locked wooden chest, the other pressed against the dusty floorboards to steady herself. Below her, footsteps climbed the attic stairs. Slow, careful, deliberate. A flashlight beam cut upward through the darkness. And behind the stacked boxes, barely visible in the shadows, a small shape curled into itself and whispered, "Don't let them take it." It was Lily. Margaret's mind reeled. How had she gotten there? Had she followed Margaret? Had she come before them? She didn't know. She only knew one thing. If Helen Carter found Lily hiding in that attic with the box, whatever happened next would be worse than anything Margaret had imagined. The flashlight beam rose higher. The steps were almost at the top. Margaret reacted on instinct. "Stay down," she whispered to Lily, barely moving her lips. Then, before fear could stop her, she shoved the wooden chest behind an old rolled-up rug and pulled the dust sheet back over it. The lock scraped softly against the floorboards. Too loud, far too loud. The footsteps stopped. Helen's voice came from just below the opening. "Who's up there?" Margaret stood. Her knees protested. Her heart pounded so hard it made her dizzy, but she forced herself upright and stepped into the beam of the flashlight just as Helen's head appeared above the attic floor. Helen froze. Shock flashed across her face. Then rage. Margaret. Margaret lifted her chin. "Good evening, Helen." Behind Helen, a man climbed the stairs after her. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark coat, clean-shaven. His face was partly hidden by shadow, but there was something in the way he moved, controlled, watchful, practiced, that made Margaret instantly distrust him. He wasn't from town, that much she knew. He scanned the attic once, his eyes sharp, not panicked, not confused, looking for something or someone. Helen stepped fully into the attic, flashlight in hand. "What are you doing in this house?" Margaret gave the only answer she could. "Breaking and entering, apparently." Helen didn't smile. "You should leave." Margaret crossed her arms. "I was just about to say the same thing." The man behind Helen took one step forward. His voice was low and calm, in a way that felt more dangerous than shouting. "We're not here for you, Mrs. Hill." Margaret looked directly at him. "I don't believe I know you." "No," he said, "you don't." Helen cut in quickly. "She doesn't need to." Margaret's eyes narrowed. Then she said what she wanted them to hear. "I found the box." Both Helen and the man stiffened. Just enough, just long enough, and Margaret knew. She had guessed right. The box mattered. A lot. Helen's voice sharpened. "Where is it?" Margaret shrugged. "Maybe I already took what was inside." The man's expression changed for the first time. Still controlled, but colder. "Don't play games." Margaret stepped backward slightly, putting herself between them and the area where Lily was hidden. "I'm too old for games." Helen moved forward, scanning the attic wildly now, kicking aside a stack of old magazines. "Where is it?" Margaret spoke loudly, deliberately. "Looking for the box or the little girl?" Helen spun toward her so fast the flashlight beam shook. For one split second the attic was silent, and in that silence everything changed, because Margaret had just said the one thing Helen hadn't wanted the man beside her to hear: "Little girl." The man slowly turned his head toward Helen. What little girl? Helen's face drained. Margaret stared at her. "You didn't tell him?" The man took another step. "What little girl, Helen?" Helen's mouth opened, then closed, and Margaret realized, with a strange thrill of horror, that Helen wasn't fully in control here. Whoever this man was, he was part of the secret, but not all of it, which meant Helen had been hiding something even from him. Good. Secrets were easier to break when liars turned on each other. Helen's voice became brittle. "This is not the time." The man's tone hardened. "Answer me." Margaret heard movement behind the boxes. Too much movement. Lily was scared. She was about to give herself away. Margaret acted fast. She grabbed an old metal lantern from a shelf and hurled it across the attic. It crashed into a pile of boxes on the far side of the room. Helen gasped and whipped the flashlight beam toward the sound. The man turned instinctively. "Now," Margaret hissed. Lily shot up from behind the boxes and ran. She burst out of the shadows like a startled deer, yellow coat flashing in the beam. Helen screamed, "Lily!" The man lunged. Margaret threw herself sideways and slammed into him with all the force her body still had. It wasn't enough to knock him down completely, but it was enough to send him off balance. He crashed shoulder first into a wooden beam. Lily darted past them toward the attic stairs. Helen grabbed for her and missed, catching only the edge of her coat sleeve. The fabric tore. Lily stumbled, nearly fell, then raced down the stairs. "Get her!" the man shouted. Margaret tried to block him again, but he shoved her aside hard. She hit the attic floor and pain exploded through her hip. Helen ran after Lily. The man followed. For one terrible second, Margaret lay there dazed. Then she heard Lily scream from downstairs, and the pain didn't matter anymore. Margaret forced herself up and half ran, half stumbled down the attic stairs. By the time she reached the living room, chaos had exploded through the abandoned house. The front door hung open. Cold night air rushed inside. A lamp had been knocked over. Broken glass crunched underfoot. Lily was backed against the wall near the kitchen doorway, trembling, while Helen gripped her wrist so tightly the child's face had gone pale. The man stood near the door, breathing hard, eyes fixed on Lily with a look that made Margaret's stomach twist. Not affection, not concern, recognition, and fear. Margaret moved instantly. "Let her go!" Helen turned. "Stay back!" Lily looked at Margaret with pure panic. The silver key was still in her hand. Margaret saw it. So did the man. His gaze dropped straight to the key, then back to Lily's face. Something about her eyes seemed to hit him all at once. His jaw tightened. His breathing changed. And then, in a voice almost too quiet to hear, "Evelyn?" Margaret froze. Helen closed her eyes briefly, as if the worst possible moment had arrived. The man stepped closer, not to Helen, to Lily. "What is your name?" Lily shrank backward. Margaret moved between them. She doesn't answer strangers. His eyes never left the child. "What is your name?" Lily's lower lip trembled. "Lily." The man swallowed. Margaret watched his face carefully. There it was, shock. Not staged, not fake, real. He looked at Helen. "What did you do?" Helen's voice cracked. "What I had to." Margaret stared between them. Then the realization hit her like ice water. This man wasn't just an accomplice. He was connected to Lily directly. Margaret's voice dropped. "Who are you?" The man looked at Lily again before answering. "My name is Daniel Reed." Margaret felt the room tilt. She knew the name. Everyone in Vermont knew the name. Governor Daniel Reed, beloved by cameras, trusted by voters, a polished public face on every local news station for years. A married man, a man rumored to be planning a run for national office. And now he was standing in a decaying farmhouse, staring at an 8-year-old girl like he was looking at a ghost. Margaret's throat went dry. Oh my God. Helen let go of Lily's wrist. The child ran straight into Margaret's arms. Margaret held her close. Daniel Reed took one shaky step backward. "You told me she was gone," he said to Helen. "I told you what kept her safe," Helen snapped. "You said Evelyn left town." "She did." Helen stopped herself too late. Margaret's voice cut through the room like a blade. "No, she died." Silence. Daniel's face changed again. Confusion, then dawning horror. He looked from Margaret to Helen. "What?" Helen looked away. Margaret could hardly believe what she was hearing. He didn't? At least, not all of it. That meant one of two things. Either Helen had manipulated him for years, or he was a liar so practiced he could perform innocence in a haunted house. Margaret wasn't sure which possibility frightened her more. Lily clung to her coat. "Margaret." "It's okay," she whispered, though it clearly wasn't. Then Lily held up the key, and everything went still again. "She gave me this," Lily said, staring at Daniel with wide, tearful eyes. "My mommy." Daniel stared at the key like it might burn him. "Where did you get that?" "She hid it for me." Helen's face hardened. Lily stopped talking. "No!" Lily shouted suddenly, surprising everyone, including herself. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but her voice rose with the kind of courage only desperate children ever find. "You lied to me. You said she didn't want me. You said she left. Take a step forward. Lily, enough. No." The force of Lily's scream echoed through the broken house. Then she pulled something from inside her coat pocket, a small object, black plastic, worn edges. Margaret recognized it instantly, a mini cassette recorder. Lily held it out with shaking hands. "I